The lightsaber is arguably the single most iconic science fiction weapon ever conceived, appearing in essentially every Star Wars video game. In an attempt to find which Star Wars game had the best lightsaber combat, I played through 3 games that each approached the weapon in a different way: Jedi Knight II, Jedi Outcast, The Force Unleashed on Nintendo Wii, and Star Wars Kinect. It was difficult to disclude the many other Star Wars games that showcased the lightsaber, though ultimately I opted to play 3 games that each utilised a unique control scheme: a mouse and keyboard, a motion controller, and whatever the hell the Kinect is. Because while dozens of Star Wars games offer their own interpretation of the lightsaber, few actually distinguish themselves from simple 2-button hack and slash combinations. There just hasn't been a lot of variety in 3D Star Wars games when it comes to the lightsaber, which is all too often designed in the same manner as a sword. So what I'm really looking for is an authentic, intuitive, and satisfying set of mechanics that bring the lightsaber's unique characteristics to life. Obviously, this video can't cover every great Star Wars game, so I encourage you to be as vocal as possible about your opinions in the comments below. But to critically analyse the lightsaber, it's first relevant to highlight what characteristics might qualify it as unique compared to similar weapons like a longsword or katana. The defining characteristic of the lightsaber exists outside of the weapon itself. The Force, when used in tandem with the lightsaber, allows the player a flexible arsenal of offensive and defensive capabilities. The dynamic interplay between the Force and the lightsaber becomes in itself one weapon: the Jedi. Each of the 3 games I played approached the Force in different ways, and that had quite an impact on the way in which the lightsaber was utilised. Jedi Knight II Jedi Outcast excels at fast, energetic lightsaber duels that encourage the player to maneuver around environments with speed and agility. After being confined to first-person shooting in the game's opening hours, protagonist Kyle Katarn finally gets his hands on a lightsaber, which is really where the game begins, as you immediately find yourself taking part in precipitously challenging lightsaber duels, unlocking new Force abilities as you go. Lightsaber combat in Jedi Outcast isn't very precise or technical, but more focused on fluid momentum, as you'll need to keep moving to stay one step ahead of the enemy, even more so when you start battling multiple Sith at a time. This emphasis on movement is facilitated by an excellent variety in animations that allow you to run across walls, leap over enemies, and even jump on them to deliver a finishing blow. As a result, combat is less about landing accurate strikes and more centered around tactile traversal. And when it comes to tactics, the extent of Jedi Outcast's depth lies within the 3 lightsaber stances, essentially offering slow, normal, and fast attack speeds for high, medium, and low damage respectively. These stances can dictate your playstyle and the pace of combat, although they don't really change the gameplay all that much, primarily serving just to offer the player some minor but essential mechanical variation. The Force powers in Jedi Outcast are ultimately supplementary to the lightsaber combat, though still extremely useful. Overall, your arsenal of Jedi mind tricks strikes a nice harmony of external and internal powers, though some are more effective than others, even to the extent of being unbalanced. Like the speed power, which grants the player an exceptionally long period to take down enemies while they just stand idle, though the many other Force moves contribute to a more balanced playstyle, like the push and pull moves, bringing enemies to the ground for a quick finisher or catapulting them into a cavernous descent. When used in conjunction with the lightsaber, the Force transforms gameplay into a veritable sandbox of opportunities, one where the player is free to play however they feel. This emphasis on freedom of movement, combat stances, and Force powers are features that previous Star Wars games had failed to deliver, usually limited to rudimentary early 3D mechanics. And although later Star Wars games may have had better graphics, more fluent animations, or better physics, few have been able to match the personality and player expression of Jedi Knight II Jedi Outcast's lightsaber combat. The Force Unleashed, as the title suggests, places a high emphasis on devastating Force powers, but you'll still find yourself using the lightsaber heavily throughout the experience. The Wii port of The Force Unleashed utilizes full motion control capabilities with the Wiimote, allowing you to recreate each individual swing, slash, and stab with your gestures. These motion controls surprisingly work really well and accurately correspond with your movement, making for a satisfying and fluent melee combat system. Chaining together successive attacks has this calculated, crunchy feeling that manages to make an otherwise linear action game feel advantageous for experimentation. Force powers, as you would expect, play a pivotal role in gameplay. In some instances, these powers work fantastically in conjunction with the lightsaber, like stunning enemies with your lightning, then moving in for a finishing attack, as well as a few moves that combine the two together. Given their long range, it can be much easier to mow hordes of enemies down with excessively powerful force attacks, but it's much funner to approach these scenarios with the lightsaber in mind. In this sense, the design of The Force Unleashed seems at odds with its most engaging mechanic, as force powers dominate gameplay. This really comes to a head when you encounter one of the game's many boss battles, which make the lightsaber feel even more underutilized. All too often, these quick-time heavy boss battles boil down to high-octane force overkill, in which the pace of combat becomes solely focused on heaving opponents into large objects, or vice versa. It's not entirely unenjoyable, and you do need to land some hits with your lightsaber to take them down, but with such a versatile lightsaber mechanic in place, you would assume it could produce some fantastic lightsaber duels. Instead, it's left to languish in the background. It's unfortunate that such an unfettered melee combat system couldn't accommodate equally dynamic lightsaber duels between two opponents, but practically designing and implementing such a system is something that essentially every Wii game with melee combat has struggled with. Ultimately, the mechanic is a novel interpretation of lightsaber combat, capable of handing the player a free-flowing and fun arsenal of attacks that's ultimately limited by its technology and design. Star Wars Kinect is not a good example of lightsaber combat. It's an at times impressive showcase of what the Kinect is capable of, though mostly the digital equivalent of a dumpster fire. The central campaign of Star Wars Kinect, Jedi Destiny, leads you through an on-rails journey of intergalactic action, broken up by vapid, stiffly controlled vehicle sequences. The lightsaber fights don't fare all that much better. Your moveset is limited to your arms, one for your lightsaber, the other for your force powers. You can also jump, dodge, kick, and move forward by using your legs. In combat, when the Kinect decides to work, you can usually get by swinging your lightsaber like a madman, all the while jumping over enemies to gain the upper hand. This blunt simplicity is sometimes broken up by genuinely satisfying moments, where your lightsaber cuts through foes like a hot knife through butter. Though moment-to-moment gameplay ends up feeling shallow due to a lack of genuine challenge and rudimentary enemy design. Force powers, however, translate quite well to the Kinect. Raising your hand to toss enemies across the environment is responsive and helps to easily dispatch the large crowds in the game's later levels. The Force has the advantage of not being a physical object like the lightsaber, and as such isn't beholden to the same design limitations. When you do encounter other lightsaber-wielding enemies, these limitations become abundantly clear. Taking turns deflecting, then delivering attacks is an awkward and unresponsive experience. Given the potential that Star Wars Kinect had, these languid lightsaber duels are utterly disappointing. Similar to the Wii, the Kinect is simply too technically limited to allow any substantial freedom to the player, confining you to a clearly defined set of basic inputs, making for a thoroughly underwhelming state of enjoyment output. What Star Wars game had the best lightsaber combat? Well, it depends. Jedi Knight II Jedi Outcast stands out as the most unique and daydream-fulfilling example of a sturdy, satiating lightsaber experience. The Force Unleashed allows you to feel the weight and power of the lightsaber in the palm of your hand, while Star Wars Kinect makes you feel nothing at all, figuratively and literally. The quality of a Star Wars game may not always be defined by the innovation or fidelity of its lightsaber mechanics, although what else defines Star Wars if not the lightsaber? Yes, some Star Wars games have enjoyed a lot of success bereft of unique lightsaber combat, as other elements like an engaging narrative or immersive world take center stage. The lightsaber may not always unlock a great Star Wars game, but whenever it is used, it will always be the key. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out this video. If you disagree with anything I've said or you would just like to add to the conversation, please hit up the comments below and I'll make sure to reply to as many comments as possible. Since my last video, my channel hit 1,000 subscribers, and I'd just like to say a huge heartfelt thank you to anyone who supported this channel from today to back when I first started. Thank you so much, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the channel grow in the future. Subscribe to the channel if you liked this video, and I'll see you next time.